Can Cam Atkinson be the goal scorer that the Philadelphia Flyers have been waiting for? Ever since the trade of Jake Voracek for Cam Atkinson, we've heard endless talk about the trade-off of the value between the two players. Anybody who thinks that Jake Voracek is a negative player is kidding themselves, as he is definitely one of the best playmakers in the National Hockey League. Even at being a plus 30 age, there are not many players in the NHL who bring what Jake Voracek brings with the 6'3 size, plus 200 pounds, the ability to work around the boards as well as anybody, and always the ability to put up assist points like anybody in the game. While he's not the best playmaker in the league, he's got a hell of a pass. He's a very good shooter, even though he's never really been anything more than a 20-goal scorer, even really going back to his junior days. He's always been a playmaker. He's always been maybe more of a perimeter player than most people like, and maybe a player who's turned the puck over at times. But really, when you look at his numbers compared to his competition as being a play-driving forward, they really are just about average. It's only perception that really leads people to believe that he's a turnover machine, because quite frankly, it's his job to do what he does. And there's a reason that tons of coaches have used him in the exact same way every single time. They see the statistics, they see the footage, and yet they keep giving him the puck because there aren't many players in the league who can move the puck like Jake Voracek. Having said that, the Flyers didn't necessarily do themselves a disservice by trading him in this case for Cam Atkinson. Cam Atkinson, while undersized at 5'8", 175, is a player who plays bigger than his size. The Flyers have a few guys like that on the team, and with the Flyers' strength at wing, it does allow them to at least take a look at a guy like Cam Atkinson as a top-line goal scorer. His cap hit is decent. The Flyers save money on that, but I don't really think that this trade was just done just to save money. There were rumors that the Flyers were going for Vladimir Tarasenko, a player who definitely has more size than Cam Atkinson, but maybe isn't as good defensively. Probably better offensively when healthy, especially as a goal scorer. But Cam Atkinson has shown to be a premier goal scorer in the past. He didn't come into the NHL with the expectations of being such a player. In his junior career, he definitely put up a lot of points in the NCAA for Boston College. In Columbus, he came in his rookie year, 7 goals, 7 assists, 14 points, 27 games in his rookie year. That's pretty good for an unknown player, a relatively unknown player in comparison to some of his counterparts. His following year, he had 9 goals, 9 assists, 18 points in 35 games. Again, a similar pace, not showing anything monumental, but still really good numbers for a young player. I think anybody would be happy with that type of production from a young guy, especially who's undersized. His third year in the league, 21 goals, 19 assists, 40 points in 79 games. This is very good numbers. Puts you about a middle six forward, showing to be a 20-goal scorer again at a young age. Pretty impressive. And then the following year in 2014-2015, he does it again. 22 goals, 18 assists, 40 points in 78 games. About the same level of production until the following year, his team starts to improve, starts to become a little more competitive, and that's where you see his offensive numbers do start to go up. The following year, he's got 27 goals, 26 assists, 53 points in 81 games, almost plays a full season. The following year, maybe his breakout year officially, 35 goals, 27 assists, 62 points in 82 games. Now, again, overall statistically, he's not putting up points like Jake Voracek, who was known to put up 80 points, was a Hart Trophy candidate at one point, probably around that age, but Jake Voracek really never escalated his game above being a 20-goal scorer, and as you're seeing, Cam Atkinson at that point is being more of a finisher. 35 goals is quite an impressive feat, especially for a guy who's 5'8", not playing on an elite team, where the Columbus Blue Jackets have never been a team that's really outscored competition, but it is a time where he started to separate himself in the past, always a pest to play against, and you can really I mean, without the extreme personality, he does have a lot of the Brad Marchand qualities that we all really like. And Marchand himself is a two-way player. And you look at a guy like Cam Atkinson, he's a little bit smaller, but definitely brings a lot of that same game. He scores from in tight. He scores from around the outside. He likes to shoot. He likes to play physical. He can be a grinder, a pest, but can also play just that pure shooter role on not only when offensively, but also shorthandedly, as he did have more shorthand goal than the entire Philadelphia Flyers team combined in the previous season. In 2017-2018, he had 24 goals, 22 assists, 46 points in 65 games. Did take a step backwards in goal score, but again, didn't play a full season there. The following year, he did play for Team USA. I do want to add that 7 goals, 4 assists, 11 points in 10 games. Also an impressive feat. And again, playing for Team USA, and putting up those type of points in the Olympics, 7 goals in 10 games, you do see his goal-scoring prowess is there, especially when paired with offensive playmakers. And that's what I'm going to get to at the end of this video. The following year, in 80 points, this is his true goal scoring year. He has 41 goals, 28 assists, 69 points, his best season so far, showing that he can break that 40 goal mark. It is a rare mark for players to break. Players rarely get to the 40 goal. A lot of times, even if they're very good goal scorers, they'll hit that 30 goal mark. The 40 goal mark is a very difficult one to hit. He did have Artemi Panarin on the team at the time to help bring that goal scoring along, and as this is what I want to get into at the end of it, going through his stats. The following year, in 44 games, he had 12 goals, 14 assists. Again, didn't start breaking in those high numbers, but he only played half a season. We don't really know where he got to. It looked like he maybe could have potentially hit a 30-goal season there if he really started to get rolling. And then this past year, 15 goals, 19 assists, 34 points in 56 games. So about a consistent performance. You can see his numbers are always about the same, between the 25 to 35 to 40 goal score range, but always being able to put up points consistently, meanwhile also playing a two-way game. Now, what I want to talk about here, and I stick only to his regular season numbers, his playoff numbers are pretty good, actually. He hasn't played too many playoff games, but in total, in 35 games total, he has 10 goals, 16 assists for 26 points, and he's an even player. That is very good for a player who is never really been on a playoff performing team. So this is a guy who does show up in the big moments. That is important and probably will show him to be loved. Now, what I do want to talk about here is that Claude Giroux is probably the best playmaker outside of Artemi Panarin that he's ever getting to play with. This is where I do think Cam Atkinson will play a role in the top line. I do think that I can understand why a lot of people are saying this, that he will be tried at the second line. It makes sense. He has connections with Kevin Hayes. He's also brand new on this team. Having said that, because of his prowess defensively, his ability to play a two-way game, I do think the Flyers are going to be very tempted to play him with Claude Giroux. Claude Giroux has not had a shooter himself to play with. The closest thing they've had to that has been Scott Hartnell. Before that, Braden Shen, who is a decent goal scorer in his own right, but has never been a 40 goal scorer. Claude Giroux got Scott Hartnell to score 40 goals. And while Claude Giroux is not still in his prime, he is playing with Sean Couturier, who's in his prime. So you look at Couturier with Giroux and Atkinson. This is a line that can play defensively against anybody, and maybe this is a line that the Flyers really can throw out against that perfect line of the Boston Bruins with David Pastrnak, Brad Marchand, and Patrice Bergeron. The Flyers do have kind of an interesting mix here now with Cam Atkinson, a guy who really is a goal scorer's mold, but is also a defensively sound goal scorer, and one that even as his game declines, the Flyers can still relatively use him in that middle six position and play a big role on the penalty kill. And I think that's really the value they saw here, is that even as his age declines, that his value won't decline too much, and at the very worst, he maybe is a potential buyout at the end of his contract, but I don't really think that it'll come to that, as he doesn't seem like a type of player who's really aging in any kind of way. His numbers aren't really dropping. They're kind of staying consistent and really more relative to the team that he plays on. If you put him in the right scenario, he seems to produce more goals. So the Philadelphia Flyers have had a problem with their power play of late. Having said that, there are new players afoot. Ryan Ellis is here. Keith Yandel is here. Rasmus Ristolainen is here. All three of those players I just named have had very good success on the power play. While Shane Gostisbehere is now gone, who led this team in, defensively in points, especially over the last several years, Ivan Provorov can absolutely still rebound offensively. This is a guy who put up 17 goals at even strength a few years back. This is a guy who's absolutely capable of running a power play, absolutely capable of running a top power play. And I think people underestimate how young he still is and how big of a role he's really been given. He's playing number one PK, number one power play, number one even strength. There is no rest for the weary for Provorov. So now we see this kind of interesting mix. This is a much harder team to match up against, especially when you consider the power play. Flyers also have Wade Allison. They still have JVR. They still have TK. They have other guys who score from the wing. So it's not that everything relies on Atkinson, but this is a guy who the Flyers can throw in the mix and a piece that they have not really had in a long time. I'm very excited to see if there's chemistry that can be built between Claude Giroux and Cam Atkinson. If it doesn't work with Claude Giroux and Cam Atkinson, there are other options of combining him with other players. TK can still be elevated to the top line. He's seen success there in the past for sure. Oscar Lindblom can be elevated. If he's back to his previous form, he'll be a top 6 forward, and JVR will be dropping down to the third line, which I don't think is necessarily a problem because he elevates his game on the power play anyway. But the Flyers have the ability to play Cam Atkinson with Kevin Hayes as well, a player who also can play pretty well on 5-on-5 playmaking. Loves to hold the puck, big, strong guy, and is a guy who can get the puck to a guy like Cam Atkinson, and it does allow the Flyers to kind of create some variation. There still is Joel Farabee, who is a future goal scorer in the making. I would say he's already hit that stride, hitting the 20-goal mark this past year. Joel Farabee might lead this team in goals again next year, but let's hope that Cam Atkinson could at least give him a run for his money, maybe getting back to that 40-goal pace. It's absolutely still possible at his age, as he is not an old man, and this is not a young man's game. Despite what most people have said, I still do not agree with that statement. It is a young man's salary game, but it is still a veteran man's game. That means 30-year-old players are still highly valuable and are still the ones producing the most points in the league. Even the guys who produce the most points in the league, they're in their mid-20s to 30s. They're not in their early 20s. It takes time to evolve. So Cam Atkinson's game is not really dropped off. You look at the guy in the face, he still looks as young as anybody else on the team. This is a guy who brings in a lot of energy. I imagine he's going to have a big offseason. He's probably super excited to see what he can do with a brand new lineup. He's never played anywhere else but Columbus, which again brings some risk in the fact where can he reproduce his success there. But I would say there's no real reason to assume that he can't. Again, he's had very good success in the playoffs. That is not a great playoff performing team. They struggled in the playoffs. They've had some success. They've also had some bad luck playing against the best team in the league twice in a row. But he was definitely a big part of challenging that team. This is not a player who ever really been boosted by the players around him. And you look at this past year, he's a -16, where the Columbus Blue Jackets really struggled, yet he still put up 34 points in 56 games. I mean, you stretch that over an entire season, he's still putting above 50 points a year. He's still hitting the 20-goal mark, right? Most likely hitting 25, maybe even 30 goals if he catches fire. And that's what it's really all about. If he comes in and starts scoring goals early, there is a good chance that he might hit that 35 to 40 goal range, and then that Flyers trade looks very, very good. Even if he only does 35 to 40 goals twice in those remaining 4 years, that is still an excellent win for the Flyers, because while they could always use a playmaker, this team lacked the guy to pull the trigger. How many times did we see the Flyers on a 2-on-1 and somebody not take the shot? How many times on the power play do we see them consistently pass the puck around and then wait for eventually Claude Giroux, who is also not a pure shooter, a great shot but not a heavy shot, have to take the shot? Now the Flyers have Ryan Ellis, who will take that shot. They have Rasmus Ristolainen, who will take a shot. They have Keith Yandel, who will obviously take the shot any single time he has the chance. He's got a great shot from the point. Even if he's not same speedster he used to be, he's still a shooter from the point. Travis Sanheim can still shoot. Ivan Provorov can still shoot. So the point there is filled up. And then you think about that position that Jake Voracek used to play on that wing. He used to take a lot of shots from over there, but didn't necessarily score a lot of shots from there and miss the net quite a bit. That was probably my biggest frustration with Jake Voracek, is more that he would miss the net a lot of times on those crucial one-timers, and that's where I think Atkinson can really elevate his game here, is he can start burying some of those shots, or at least get them on net. Also a role that I could see Joel Farabee taking up. Maybe he'll play more on the second unit to start this year, but I do think this is a crucial year for Cam Atkinson. I think he can come out. I do think a 30-goal year should be expected. Anything above that, I think, is icing on the cake, but a 30-goal year from a guy who makes under $6 million a year is a really good number. You look at what we paid JVR at 7+, and he's not a two-way player. Cam Atkinson, if he can come in and fit nicely on that top line, he's not the biggest guy, but neither is Travis Konechny. He does bring everything else that we need. Again, a two-way goal scorer. I mean, Joel Farabee could be the guy who steals the show and maybe takes that top line, but at that point, what's the difference? If he's better than both of them, then let Joel Farabee take it. But at this point, it would be really nice to see a veteran come in here and establish himself as a goal scorer on this team. We haven't had a true one since, I'd say, arguably Jeff Carter. Realistically, it was Simone Gagne, who was a pure shooter. Jeff Carter was also a shooter, but he was underestimated center, kind of did it all, and as you can see, he's still successful with the Pittsburgh Penguins and the LA Kings. He was more of a two-way goal-scoring center who did everything. Definitely a valuable center, but we haven't had kind of a winger goal-scorer type, pure goal-scorer type since Simone Gagne. Say Atkinson brings some of that same skill set, and the Flyers could really use some of that. Claude Giroux has experience playing with goal scorers in the past and definitely elevated his game when he played with guys who had a shoot-first mentality. If Atkinson can keep that mentality, I think Claude Giroux can make him look very good. And let me not forget that Sean Couturier also does it all. So while a lot will be put on Claude Giroux to kind of pass the puck this year, nobody is forgetting about Sean Couturier's ability to pass the puck, to win battles, to take his own shots. And if Cam Atkinson starts shooting and goal scoring, I wouldn't be surprised if Sean Couturier's goal prowess also goes back up and sees him at least hit 35 goals this year as well. And if you have a line where 2 of your 3 players are hitting 35 goal plus, that will allow Claude Giroux to see his numbers go right back up to probably a point per game pace, maybe even above that. And if the defense holds up the way it's supposed to, you could see a very dangerous team. So let's hope Cam Atkinson can come and fulfill that role. Let's hope that Chuck Fletcher and the company did their homework properly and made sure that there is nothing declining in Cam Atkinson's game, because I didn't see anything in particular, and I don't think Cam doubts himself very much. So let's get him in here. Let's get him shooting. Let's get some more goals scored.